Hey everyone, welcome to RPG a Day. I'm taking part this year myself, and the RPG a Day thing is a yearly little questionnaire to promote positivity within the hobby. And for each day of the month of August, there's going to be a question, and people are making response videos. And I decided to jump in. For further details, check the description box. I'll put a link there. The question for the first day for today is, what published RPG do you wish you were playing right now? And for me, I didn't have to think about it too long because there's a certain game on my bookshelf there that's been staring me, kind of judgmentally for quite a while for not playing it. And that is one of my favorites, Dark Ages Inquisitor. I've already made a video or two about Inquisitor Dark Ages, and it's one of those games that really speaks to me on a certain level. It's a game that I've only ran once in my life, and that was during when I freshly bought it. Barely understood the setting and the kind of tone it was going for, and was barely a mature enough of a player, let alone a person, to really dive into the sort of themes and moods that it really like wants to portray. And Currently, I'm running a campaign. I'm playing in a campaign, and there's going to be another campaign soon enough that I'm going to be playing in. So I have, there's no way I'll have the time to actually start an Inquisitor game. But if I had like a clean slate and I had to start something from scratch, that game right there is something that I've been aching to get to play one day for sure, especially since it's one of those kind of games that requires a certain type of a set of players, as well as a game master, if you want to portray it the way I think the kind of fluff and the kind of information laid out in the book kind of suggests. It's a very kind of macabre, dark, brooding, violent, depressing kind of game, and that's not for everybody. For example, in my face-to-face group here in my town that I run D&D for, they're the type of players that are perfect for D&D and that kind of action adventure, having kind of fun and cracking jokes and that sort of thing, and not so much this kind of game. Whereas maybe my online group might be more fitting to that description that fits to the sort of player that Inquisitor really requires, because it's a very kind of serious thing, at least that's the way I would want to portray it if I were to come up with a plot and run a campaign of Inquisitor. It's the kind of setting that it portrays, the dark medieval times, the times of crusades and of Black Death and stuff like that. It's a very miserable, setting. It's, Europe in this kind of time where death and misery is always present in your, day-to-day life. And it's just something that feeds a certain kind of imagination when it comes to inquisitors being actual monster hunters in medieval times, where actual monsters do exist in the setting where it's historical, but it takes it to an extreme where actual vampires exist, actual witches, actual devil worshipping cultists and stuff like that exists, and there is a secret society within the Inquisition who actually hunt those very real monsters. So there's a lot of things to consider when you want to run that sort of game, and it's mostly having to do with people's sensibilities, because everybody has their own limits and their own comfort zones, and religion and that sort of historical period can be something that's not for everybody, not only because they might not be looking for something that's serious or depressing, but it can be a sensitive subject, to bring something as personal as one's religious beliefs into the gaming table, or something that's really gruesome and hideous that's taken place in human history to be made light of, in the sense that people used to burn women as witches, and let's now play a game where they were kind of right, where they were actually witches. That can easily rub somebody the wrong way. But for me, it's more about the setting, in the sense that a lot of the other Dark Ages White Wolf games have you playing the monster, have you playing a vampire in the medieval times, or a werewolf in the medieval times, and stuff like that. And that's kind of fun as its own thing. But in terms of being in the medieval times, the closer you can get to actual humans, the more it kind of gives me the sort of vibes where I'd be very interested in it, because the medieval times, especially the Dark Ages, have a certain flair, certain fascination kind of comes about with it for me. It kind of brings with it certain intrigue where it really titillates me in a certain way, where such misery kind of has this it kind of unleashes certain creativity, certain creative aspects in a human being. I would argue when I read something like Dante's Divine Comedy, or when I read something like, I even have the Hexenhammer, the Malleus Maleficarum, the witch burning manual, and stuff like that on my bookshelf. It just opens these kind of floodgates of the human psyche when it goes to really dark places, kind of thing, where death and tragedy and stuff like that is very mundane, and it's just something very interesting to kind of grab stuff from and get inspired to write something and play something really kind of macabre that way. It's the setting itself. It's like, I love movies like Flesh and Blood, like Seventh Seal, and I just recently rewatched one of my favorites, especially in that kind of genre, which is the Russian movie Hard to Be a God, which really depict this sort of almost misery exploitation in this medieval setting. And me and my friends, we jokingly call it peasant exploitation. And it's just, it's so fantastical in its scope that it's hard to imagine. It's almost as fantastical as something with elves and dwarves and orcs and stuff, but in a very different way, in a much less lighthearted way. The same thing with those books I mentioned before. I like Dante's Inferno and stuff, and there's going to be a Dante's Inferno kind of tattoo on my chest later on this month. And if you look at like my forearm there, the kind of medieval art style, same going with my shoulder with the Faust theme there. It's something that really speaks to me in a certain way. And when it comes to Inquisitor Dark Ages, it really like manifests in this game in a way where I just can't wait to one day get to run it. I would be interested in playing it as well, but or being a player in it as well. But being a game master in that setting, being in charge of really bringing life to that environment and really coming up with all sorts of plots and wicked little details and getting to role play that with players would be something I really want to get into. But it's not going to be in the near future because of all the other entanglements I have myself already kind of sewed into when it comes to gaming campaigns. I don't want to overbook myself and exhaust myself. I don't want to get bored with it or burned out with it, kind of thing. So yeah, that's day one of RPG A Day 2017. Go check out the link where the whole concept is kind of introduced by its original creator, and yeah, take part and join in. And how about you? What's a published game that you wish you were playing right now? So be seeing you, and have yourself a good August. That's a nice lager.